Lords of the Fallen is a very good game. I didn't know what to expect going into Lords of the Fallen because it had received some critical review as far as I could tell in the general consensus. But recently there was significant updates made to the game, after which the review and the tune has kind of changed. Now, there was a significant portion of the community that already enjoyed this game, and I think it was already a good game. They already had a lot of great ideas and execution here, but they proceeded to refine that in making an update, making continual updates to the game, and just kind of continuously making it better. If you know nothing about this game, it is technically a Souls-like, and it is a sequel or spiritual successor to the original Lords of the Fallen from quite a long time ago, which I did play and which kind of consensusly was not super good. This Lords of the Fallen, however, whether before or after the updates, whichever one of those things is what led us to the desirable result we have, is a really, really good Souls-like. I maintain that if we have to do comparison, the best Souls-like is Lies of P. That game is unreal. Its refinement, its gameplay mechanics rival and might even be better than From Software's in some design choices. Now, that's a totally separate topic and something that we could talk about completely separately. But Lords of the Fallen is a good time. To me, it feels kind of like Dark Souls 3. They have an interesting mechanic called Umbral, which you may see on the screen now, which is where you go into a version of reality that is essentially like the Upside Down from Stranger Things, where things are decayed and you can unlock different pathing in the Upside Down than you can in the normal gameplay of the game. Contrary-wise to Dark Souls 3, this game is quite fast. Your movement is swift, and everything feels really smooth. I know that one of the complaints, I believe, when the game originally came out was that it was pretty clunky. That is not the case now. Whether that is a product of the updates and just some of that streamlining and upgrading, the game now is, in my opinion, smooth as butter, to where I played the PS5 remake of Demon's Souls right after this and was like noticeably having a difficult time with the controls, because this game is genuinely really buttery smooth feeling. It's really good looking. The design, if not the graphical fidelity necessarily, is really spectacular. I think it has, some of that excellent level design that we come to crave and enjoy from Souls-like games. Really unique, really thoughtful, and boss design is reflected in the same way. I will say that fighting bosses in this game is maybe easier, although there is a increased difficulty that you can turn it up to that does increase that experience. Generally, though, this game feels... I'm trying to think of what to compare it to, where I feel that your iframes are pretty generous, especially on your double roll. So if you dodge around, you have a pretty good chance of just being good. And so that makes like boss fights maybe a little bit easier, but I wouldn't say too easy. I wouldn't say unfun, because this game has some of my favorite boss designs, like just some really amazing and very fun and well-made boss designs, in my opinion. The environment designs are really fun. The exploration in this game feels fun. A lot of it feels like an upgrade. Like there's some quality of life stuff in here that to me feels like an upgrade compared to even the systems of like Dark Souls, for example, or Elden Ring. There's a lot of really good stuff in here, is what I'm saying. But you can see that the combat works in essentially the same way, where you have a dodge mechanic, you have parrying, you have heavy and light attacks. Like it's really, I don't know if you would call it ununique in that way, but like it does those things really well. So it's very refined feeling. And I would say that to me, a lot of the boss designs feel very satisfying, like the dodging and fighting and all of that kind of stuff feels very smooth. It feels like Dark Souls 3, which is kind of as far as like the rolling dodge, although it is important to note that your first dodge is actually a quick step, as you might have noticed, so a little bit more like Bloodborne in that way. You can start the game playing as a Black Feather Ranger, I believe it's called, which is essentially like the character from Bloodborne, which is really sick for a huge Bloodborne fan. If you've seen the trailer for Lords of the Fallen 2, which is out now, it is being compared to Bloodborne, of course. And they've obviously made some choices with intention to do that. That's a really high standard to me, Bloodborne being the greatest video game of all time. But I don't blame them for choosing to go that direction, you know? Obviously, I want it to be as good as Bloodborne, and I feel like the potential's there, you know? So I'm not opposed to them making a Bloodborne-like game. There is quite a cool mechanic where if you die, you get essentially a last chance by coming back in that umbral form. So the umbral is a huge gameplay mechanic. It's very much more than just a system that the game has. It's very much like the thing that you do in a game, which I think is quite cool. And it gives the game kind of its unique flavor. I don't know that umbral is my favorite thing in the world, but I do like it. I do find it enjoyable. I think solving the umbral puzzles is actually surprisingly enjoyable. I feel like my primary issue with it is the umbral enemies, which can get a little bit cumbersome and just feel like they're kind of over the top. But again, I would just say that the boss design feels great. The weapon design feels great. It's got your big swords. It's got generally the things that you would want from like a Souls-like game. And the movesets and things feel good. There's unique special abilities and things that you can execute upon. I think the parry and guard break system feels quite good as well. There's just kind of a smoothing to the game that I actually really like. You can see some of the umbral navigation here, which I do think genuinely adds to the gameplay experience. I do think right along with the design and overall execution and smooth feeling of this game, and the fact that I would say the bosses in some way lend themselves to this, but the story to me is interesting. Like it genuinely has an interesting story to where I find the lore and the story of the game to be interesting. I think that they have interesting implications that you can feel as you play, to where it feels like you are exploring a broken world where many things have happened and there's many things there for you to uncover. Just like in, I would say, Dark Souls or those games. In my opinion, using heavy weapons feels quite good in this game. I did start off with essentially like a dexterity build, and that also feels quite good. I cannot comment on things like magic and incantations because that's not how I play these games. The same is true for me in whatever other Souls game. I cannot tell you how the magic is because I don't use it. But I have heard that doing like a Radiance build is really quite good, and I'm probably going to try a mixed Radiance build where it still primarily relies on melee, but does have some use of spells and things. Sort of like in Elden Ring, where you can do like a faith build that is mainly for faith weapons as opposed to actually casting faith incantations or spells, anything like that. Though, in my opinion, that stuff does feel good. So it's not like I'm saying you don't have to do that, but there are certain abilities that you get in this game that can power your character up. You can use the Umbral Lamp for quite a lot of things. But in my opinion, I basically played my first playthrough of this. I've done two now. My first playthrough of this, I did pretty much raw melee, I would say, and I found it very doable and enjoyable. I did not use a lot of special abilities, did not have to learn a lot of complex mechanics. I didn't really do a lot of parrying even, and I found the game very manageable in that way. I am playing it in the Legacy, I think it's called, which is not the OG. It was known for having, I would say, some design flaws initially, and then after the upgrade, they thinned out the enemies and nerfed some bosses, things like that. So I would say playing in that designed and tailored experience, I think, feels great. I can't speak to how it would feel necessarily to play in the more traditional experience and with the difficult bosses on New Game. I still want to do a playthrough where I go through and do the more difficult, because genuinely, like I said, I feel that these the bosses and the enemies in this game are relatively manageable once you learn them. There was no boss in this game that took me more than a few attempts, including my favorite of the bosses. But to me, personally, that's not necessarily a bad thing. People have kind of various opinions on how hard they want these games to be. I feel that the base setting for this game is kind of amazing. Like, it feels wonderful, where everything is kind of a perfect challenge, but that there is, you know, enough that it is not just immediately available to you. So it takes you effort, but is not so challenging in sort of the Elden Ring way, I would say, where if you want to defeat Radagon or Godfrey, like you have to spend some time learning them. There's no boss, in my opinion, that really chalks up to that. That could just be me coming in as an experienced player, but I've never found myself to be like excellent at these games. I'm by far the best at Bloodborne. I've spent the most time of my life playing Bloodborne, and I'm really, really good at that game. But I don't really consider myself like the best Dark Souls Elden Ring player ever. I've beat all those games numerous times with numerous weapons in numerous ways. And based on that experience, again, I just found this game to be nicely challenging to where it was fun and enjoyable, but not so much that I was getting tired of doing it, I guess might be the right way to put that. Like I didn't feel taxed and overall very annoyed with the circumstances, the way that I think you can sometimes get in those games. So again, I would compare it to Dark Souls 3 as far as difficulty goes. The very final boss, if you play according to the default playthrough, is probably the hardest. There's some challenges in here, for sure. There's a particular boss that is an NPC that you can fight that is maybe even more difficult. He's maybe equal. I don't know. No, he's more difficult, I think. He took me the most tries of anything. But it's very optional, and it's incredibly hard quest to do that you won't even get it normally. So just something to keep in mind that as far as challenge-wise, if you really like the challenge, you might want to come in and select the harder difficulty right away. Because if you don't, I think you will find this game not that challenging, generally. I do also feel like you could compare this game to something like Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, where you have the option to rest. I just feel like you can see where inspiration is taken from the Souls-like genre as opposed to just the Souls genre. It has a lot of qualities, I think, that are like that. So, but again, to me, whether by virtue of all the updates or wherever we're at, it does feel very refined at this point. I don't know if it originally felt a little bit clunky for some people or how they felt about it, but to me, it feels like a really nice game at this point. You also have a bunch of modifiers that you can use. I'm going to show you the first boss of the game at this point. So if you are looking for no spoilers, then you can tune out of this part, but I do want to show you this first boss. It has a really cool design and kind of gives you an idea of how the bosses in this game are going to look for the most part going forward. So you can tune into this if you want to see it, and if not, then don't. But there are unique modifiers that you can put on the game where you can change enemy randomization, and you can have enemies in different places and things like that. I'm playing really badly on this fight. Maybe I'm going to stay on purpose. But so there's a lot of customization you can do to your gameplay. You can get things like leveled up loot, which I think is really sick. It's just something that should have been added to other games, and I think it's silly that they don't. Same thing with like Lies of P, where they're adding quality of life stuff that the regular Souls games never had, and maybe that adds to some of the charm of them, but it would be really cool to have some of the stuff that these games do. I do believe it also has a boss rush mode, just like Lies of P does, to where if you want to just fight bosses, you can do that without replaying the entire area. I think that's pretty neat and unique. This is New Game Plus, so we're quite overpowered for this boss, but on your first playthrough, she can be pretty tough to learn for the first time, so I really recommend picking this game up. I'm thinking of doing a later video where I showcase, I might post some of my favorite bosses. I think I recorded my favorite bosses in the game. There's two in particular that people probably know what I'm talking about. I'm using the sword of one of them. There's two in particular bosses that make this game great, in my opinion. They're so cool lore-wise, design-wise. They're so fun to fight that I think they really create a unique and really enjoyable experience. So I suggest picking this game up. Let me know what you thought about Lords of the Fallen. Let me know if you enjoyed it. I'll probably end up making an analysis of it at some point. For those who have followed along with this channel at all, you'll know that theological analysis of these games is kind of my specialty and what I do. I'm currently, and have been forever, working on my Bloodborne analysis, so don't take that as a promise that it's coming soon. I am trying to work hard on it, but it is so time-consuming. And I have just not had time for it, but I'm trying, and I want to get that out. So I continue to work on analysis of these types of games, and I look forward to doing it about this game, about Lies of P as well, and games that I think are interesting. So all that to say, Lords of the Fallen was for free on PS Plus last month, I think, or the month before. I picked it up, and I love it. It's now one of my favorite games, easily. It doesn't necessarily take out the top spots, like I said, of the Souls games, but I think it's the most valiant attempt, other than Lies of P, that we've had. It's totally different than Lies of P, so comparing it doesn't always feel right, but it's excellent, and it's very fun. And if you like Dark Souls 3, you're gonna like this game, and I recommend picking it up and getting into it. That's all I have to say for now. This has been Credence Plays. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you consider sticking around, letting me know what kind of analyses you might like to see, what kind of games you think I should look into, and just what you thought. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good one.